Oh, don't mind me. We're just two people looking at each other, wondering when Vegas is going to grow a set of balls. Hey, we'll cut that off right there so that YouTube doesn't take away my monetization. What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and welcome to week 21, such as it is, of my CFL football pick show for 2024. And I say such as it is, not because of anything going on this side of the camera. No, this show is maintaining that nice meaty part of the curve that you've come to know and love. No, I'm saying such as it is because we got nothing. We got no lines. We got no totals. We got nothing. Because Vegas, all of the line makers are all cowering in the corner of a room going, what's to be done with the Daniel Adeboboye-led running back room? How can we possibly account for Dustin Crum possibly starting in Ottawa? Yeah, long and short of it, cowards. Big coward energy. Big can't possibly give you a line coward energy. And this is what happens when the people who are entrusted with setting the lines have no actual insight or intuition into the game they're setting the lines for. The Vegas line makers, their intuition for football, especially Canadian football, begins and ends with what's on their spreadsheet. Stop me when I tell a lie. So in the absence of that, we're going to talk about what happened in week 20, and then I'm going to tell you how we're going to go about things this week. So week 20, solid week for me. There were only 3 games on the slate. I was 2-1 across the board. 2-1 straight up, 2-1 against the spread, 2-1 on the totals. So it was a 6-3 week for me, which I definitely like. Straight up now 45, 30, and 2 on the season. A full 15 games above 500 there. Against the spread, 42 and 35, which is nice, and then 41 and 36 on the total. So pretty standard across the board picking the CFL this season. It's been one of my more successful years, and I'm super proud of it. 6-3 means I'm 128, 101, and 2 in total this season. So 27 games up on my losses. Got to feel pretty good about it. Also got to feel pretty good about what I pulled off in CFL Fantasy last week for, what is this, like the 3rd straight week, I think, that I was up above 100 points. Let's go back. Yeah, 3rd straight week in triple digits. So really making that push here at the end of the season. In week 20, 135.1, mostly fueled by a massive performance from Bo Levi Mitchell. That 135.1 was good for just outside the top 700 across the whole game and just inside the top 200 in Derek Taylor's league. For the season, now I have 2,060.1 fantasy points, which is good for 1,642 across the entire game and just outside the top 200 in Derek Taylor's league. Like I mentioned, Bo Levi Mitchell, 100% my most outstanding player, put up 36 points last week with the 2 times captain multiplier, which means a big 72-point performance from the Boveralls, the king of the Boveralls himself. He really paid off for me last week. So as I caricatured for you off the top of the show, there's no betting lines for anything. There's no spreads, there's no totals, no idea. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to very briefly talk about the 4 games, and then I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, basically, when the lines come out, because they will come out eventually. And if history's any indication, all 4 of the lines are going to be somewhere around 2.5, and all 4 of the totals are going to be somewhere around 46. It's what they did last year. It's what they did the year before that. Obviously, the betting action drove the lines in particular directions, but when they first came out, they were all basically the same the last couple of years. So that's what's going to wind up happening. So I don't know why Vegas is dragging their heels. They might as well just do what they've done the last couple of years. Anyways, the 4 games this week. The Hamilton Ticats are in Ottawa taking on the REDBLACKS. The Argos are in Edmonton taking on an Elks team coming off of the bye. The Bombers are coming off of their bye in Montreal taking on the Alouettes, a game that actually has some stakes to it for the Bombers. And the Calgary Stampeders are on the tail end of back-to-back road games. They're in Saskatchewan to close the week. So that first game, Ticats and RedBlacks, Hamilton has no reason here not to be kind of all hands on deck. We know they're not going to the playoffs. This is the last game of their season. And for teams that are in that situation where it is their last game of the year, there's nothing they can do about that. What those teams want to accomplish in this last game is leave that thought in people's minds, their own fans and anybody watching that game, especially in this context for the Ticats. They're playing a team that they had a chance to catch here right at the end of the season. One of the teams they had a chance to catch and kind of sneak into the postseason. They want to leave that impression on people that watch this game that, hey, we're better than these guys. We should be going to the playoffs. If we wouldn't have sucked so bad early in the season, we would be going to the playoffs, and we're going to use this game to prove why. That's exactly what I think the Ticats' mentality is going to be coming into this game. I expect it'll be all hands on deck. Bo Levi Mitchell obviously coming off of a massive game last week. For the RedBlacks, they know they're playing in the East semifinal. They know they're going to Toronto. There is no reason for them to be playing their full complement of players. Nothing that happens in this game, except bad things, can impact what's going to happen in that game against Toronto. So I expect Drew Brown probably not going to play. I expect Jeremiah Masoli probably doesn't play either. There's no reason for them not to give this start to Dustin Crum. So I genuinely think Dustin Crum's going to be the starting quarterback for Ottawa as long as he's healthy. Kalen LeBourne I don't expect to see. Justin Hardy, Dominique Rhymes, Jalen Acklin, Khalil Pimpleton. I wouldn't be starting any of these guys. I would be giving all of them this week off. Healthy scratch all of them. Pull guys up off the practice squad. Like just fill out a roster. I don't see any reason why you would have to play your players of significance in a game that has no significance whatsoever. People can talk about momentum all they want. I think it's kind of dubious as to whether or not momentum actually carries game to game. I think in some instances it does, but I don't think it necessarily always does. So here's how I'm going to play this. I like the Ticats to win this game. I think it's going to be, a couple of possessions. So the way I'm going to play this against the spread, I expect the Ticats to be the favorites, even though they're on the road, and even though they've been not very good on the road this year. I'm willing to lay anything up to -6.5 on the Ticats. So whatever the number winds up being, especially if they're getting points, like perfect. But anything up to -6.5, I'm perfectly comfortable laying on the Ticats. Above that, I'd have to kind of, I'd have to double check. And I'm willing to take an over on anything basically up to like a mid-50 pretty comfortably. So if we get like a 52.5, 53, I'm okay taking the over there. Even up to like a 55, I'd probably be okay taking the over. I think there's a chance this game could sneak into the 60s. I'm going to go like a 36-24 in favor of the Ticats. So I got the Ticats winning, the Ticats comfortably covering anything up to -6.5, and give me a comfortable over on anything up to a mid-50. That's the way we're going to play these games because, again, they're cowards. Argos and Elks are up next. Like I mentioned, the Elks, they're another team that's not going to the playoffs. They're in kind of the same position as Hamilton. For Toronto, they know they're playing in the East semifinal. They know they're hosting Ottawa. Same deal with them. No reason to play a ton of players of significance in here. I'm not expecting Chad Kelly to play. I'm not expecting Cameron Dukes even to play. May not even expect Nick Arbuckle to play. There's no reason not to give this game to just a quarterback that's on the roster. And I know there's one in particular who's behind those three guys on the depth chart, and I've lost his name. I had it, and it's totally gone. Kadeem Carey, another guy, no reason to start him, I don't think. Or if he plays, he might play a series and then be done. DeMonte Coxey, DeVaris Daniels, like the veteran receivers. There's no reason that Makai Polk isn't the most notable wide receiver to start this game for the Argos. That's just kind of the way I think they wind up playing this. And Edmonton, like Hamilton, no reason not to be all hands on deck. Because once again, you want to end the season with that thought in people's heads that, boy, I wish this team made the playoffs. I think that's the energy that Edmonton is going to bring into this game, especially where the game's at home, your last home game of the year. I expect the Elks to win this game fairly handily. In fact, more handily than I'm taking Hamilton in the previous one. For Edmonton, I am willing to lay anything up to just before double digits. So I expect Edmonton's going to be a heavy favorite in this game because, again, I think Toronto is going to, widely rest most of their notable players. So Edmonton, like anything up to like -9.5, I'll be comfortable laying that on the Elks. And again, it's very aggressive, I understand, but I'll be comfortable anything up to -9.5, laying that on Edmonton. I also kind of expect this to be a little lower scoring than Hamilton and Ottawa because I have to give some credibility to the Argos on the defensive side and Edmonton on the defensive side for that matter. So anything that's like a high 40, low 50, I'll probably still be okay taking an over on. So if you get like a 48.5, a 49, a 50, a 50.5, I'll probably go over on that number. Any higher than that, I'll probably have to think about it. So I'm going to go like a 37-17 final here. Edmonton wins. Like I say, Edmonton comfortably covers anything up to a -9.5. And I like the over on anything that's a high 40 to a low 50. Now we're off to probably the game with the most significance this week, and that's the Winnipeg Blue Bombers on the road in Montreal taking on the Alouettes. It's no significance to the Alouettes other than the fact that they know they have a bye week next week, so there's not as much incentive for them to fully rest players. You know what I mean? They know they're going to be off next week, so is this like a partial compliment for the Als? Is it a full compliment? Do they play this as if it's a playoff tune-up? It's totally credible, or if they want to rest some players, they certainly can. So there's a lot of uncertainty, I think, that's going into this particular game. For Winnipeg, they still have plenty on the line here. They have not locked up the number 1 seed in the West Division as of yet. I don't expect any resting on their part, as the Riders can still leapfrog the Bombers if the Bombers lose and the Riders win. Then the Riders get the bye and Winnipeg has to play the West semifinal. Once again, I think Montreal might take a cautious approach to this game, but they could justify playing a mostly full complement, running, a little bit of a gamble. They're running a risk of injury, but whether they play a full complement or not, I really have question marks about this Alouettes team coming into the postseason. And the problem there being, it's been so long since they've had to play games of consequence because they've had the East Division wrapped up through 13 or 14 games. I think they had the East Division wrapped up. In their last 8 games, they've won 4 of them. They've tied 1. So the tie could have kind of gone either way. But the scoring margin in those games was -19 points. On average, in their last 8 games, they've been outscored by 2 points, 23-21, and they've allowed 24 points or more in 4 of those 8 games. So over the last 8 games, you haven't really seen the Montreal Alouettes team that you probably have kind of in your head because they were so dominant in the early part of the season. It matters that you get there, but it also matters how you get there. And I don't really think that Montreal has done a great job of, sticking to a particular standard in how they get into the postseason. Yes, they know they're there. They know they've got the bye wrapped up. They know they've got home field advantage throughout. It matters how you get there. Ultimately, I do expect a playoff-style atmosphere in this game. I think it still means a lot more to Winnipeg than it does to Montreal. So ultimately, I could see Montreal maybe in the second half, some starters who maybe started the game, maybe don't finish the game, or what have you. So I'm going to take the Bombers here, especially where they're well-rested coming off the bye. Let's take Winnipeg on the road to get the win over Montreal. The way I'm going to kind of play this against the spread is I do kind of expect that this game will be really close on the spread, maybe a point either direction. You could justify, if Montreal's going to play their full complement, you could justify Montreal being the favorite in this game. I would lay anything up to like -2.5 or -3 on Winnipeg. Again, like them to win. It's within that range of small price to pay. If they're going to get plus money, even better. But if the Bombers are laying anything up to -3, I'd go ahead and lay that on Winnipeg. Total in the game, I'm taking an under on basically any 40. I'm not sure this game gets into 40 points. I get the feeling this is going to be, again, a gritty, playoff-style, low-scoring game. Any 40, I think I'm taking an under on. I'm going to go 21-17 in favor of the Bombers. Again, like them to win. Think they cover anything up to -3, and give me an under on any number that starts with a 4. And the last game we're going to look at is the Calgary Stampeders on the tail end of back-to-back road games, closing their season in Saskatchewan, where the Riders are coming in off the bye, and like I mentioned, have a shot at leapfrogging Winnipeg and getting the bye week straight to the West Final. Calgary is definitely a team that has no reason not to be all hands, but very clearly, if you've watched them the last couple of weeks, Calgary is in 2025 mode. Like, Calgary could not care less about this game. They really couldn't. They understand, I think the fans even understand, there's big changes coming in Calgary in the offseason. I get the feeling they're just in full 2025 mode. So it's not really the same context as Hamilton and Edmonton, who feel like, God, we were close. Like, we were so close here. Calgary was not particularly close, I don't think, all season long. So again, I think they're planning for next year. And depending on the outcome of Winnipeg-Montreal, which plays and finishes right before kickoff, Saski, again, could still win the number 1 seed in the West, so they may wind up being all hands. This is the most difficult game to look at this week, because it's almost entirely dependent on what happens ahead of them. So if Winnipeg loses, I expect Saski to slaughter Calgary. It's like, don't even belong in the same field. If Winnipeg wins and Saski can't improve their position, they know they're going to the West Final. They know the West Semifinal. They know they're going to host BC. I would expect them to rest Trevor Harris. I would expect them to rest AJ Ouellette. I would expect Sam Emilus, Kyan Schaefer-Baker, Sean Bain. I would expect all those guys to sit. And you might have a more competitive football game on your hands in that context. As it stands, since I do have Winnipeg winning, I'm going to play it as though Winnipeg wins, Saski's got nothing to play for. I am still going to take the Riders to win this game outright, because I just have no faith in Calgary. Like, there's zero faith in the Stampeders at this point, and again, I think huge changes are on their way. I'm comfortable laying anything up to, again, that -2.5 to -3. Anything like that on the Riders. If you happen to get plus money on them, again, even better. But I'm comfortably willing to lay anything up to the -3. And like the last game, I'm going to take an under on any 40. Anything that starts with a 4, I'm taking an under on it, because I don't think the game gets to 40 points. I'm going to take a 23-14 final here for the Riders. So I like them to win. I like them to cover anything comfortably up to a -3. Anything more than that, you kind of have to debate. And we'll have these conversations in the comments section all week long, because as these things change, the context changes, and we have to kind of keep having these conversations. So again, willing to lay anything up to a -3, and give me an under on any number that starts with a 4. I think my fantasy roster this week is going to look exceptionally similar to how it looked last week. I think it's going to be heavy on Hamilton Ticats. It's going to be heavy on Edmonton Elks, because again, both teams that still want to play well but don't have anything particularly to play for, and no reason to rest. Brady Oliveira, I think, would be probably a pretty decent start this week, kind of last chance to leave a most outstanding player impression in people's minds. I'm probably staying away from Calgary, Saskatchewan completely, just too many uncertainties. But yeah, a lot of Ticats, a lot of Elks, probably going to look at Brady Oliveira. I'll find a defense in there to play somewhere. Might even kind of roll the dice on Edmonton, because again, I don't expect a lot of Toronto starters in that game, so might look at the Elks there defensively. That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. Week 21 in the books. The regular season about to be in the books. The postseason, here she comes. Also, Vegas, go ahead and grow a set of balls.